States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to move directly into tonight's consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions this evening on the consent agenda items? Any questions this evening? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda? None opposed? Motion carries. All right, we will now turn to the superintendent's report and turn it over to Dr. Isis.
Yes, a few things in the superintendent's report this month. First, I wanted to recognize Ms. Belkey Solomon, teacher at our junior high. As you're coming in, you may have seen it on our marquee. She's been recognized as the Missouri Regional Teacher of the Year. She was our district teacher of the year. So she's been selected as one of those representing the St. Louis area. Finally, kind of getting down to potential to be the Missouri State Teacher of the Year. So she filled out that application and has submitted that. So that's a huge honor. We don't know that we've ever had a teacher get that regional recognition. So that's pretty exciting for her and for the district. Included some items regarding federal funding. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to let Ms. Hildebrand speak to that on some of our Title II, Title IV funds. Maybe you've seen that in the news.
So the federal government has put a pause on allocating Title II money, which in our district we use our Title II money for professional development as well as a classroom reduction teacher in the primary building. They've also put a pause on the Title IV allocations. And we use that for our line-wise monitoring services for all of our Chromebooks for our students, as well as our tuition for our kids that are being enrolled. They haven't said, since this came out, they actually went back and they allocated a nominal $1 to each category for us, and they haven't given us much information on when or if that money will come through. So up there's a little bit of a history on how much we receive as a district. We will continue to provide the same services that we do for our students as well as the staff. We will pull anything that from Title II, we will pull out of the general operating fund as well as our PD budget, which is part of the foundation formula. And in our Title IV tuition for our kids will also come out of our general operating. So we're hoping the Department of Education, Missouri Department of Education, thought they would hear something from the federal government anywhere between July 1st and September 30th. So they have, they're getting us as much information as we are at this point. Our Title I money, which we use for our supplementary reading program, our remedial reading program, was not affected at all. The allocation dropped by about $2,100, but that was based off of our free and reduced lunch count. So you'll see, if you see that information and you notice it drop there, was unchanged. The money came off of our free and reduced lunch count.
All right, thank you. A few additional state laws from other than the ones we're going to talk about the cell phone later on to make the board aware of is Senate Bill 63, which is the homeschool students playing athletics. Also, there was House Bill 296, which expanded substitute eligibility, allowing retired teachers now eligible to substitute under some additional guidelines. Senate Bill 49, which was chaplains in schools, so the district may employ or accept volunteer chaplains if they would choose to do so. House Bill 567, which is the minimum wage and leave act. We are above that from a salary standpoint, but it's just something that will continue to impact eye on, as the levels go up, it will, our school salaries will have to go accordingly. Something that we talked about in our admin meeting, and I just wanted to put in front of the board, and it's something that we need to keep an eye on collectively, is some technology fee concerns. As you know, with COVID and moving to one-to-one, there's issues, we'll call them new issues, but new challenges that districts are going to have to face in regards to some replacement costs. And it's more expensive than a textbook historically. So visiting with Mr. Moore, and some of this information is a little dated as I have in there. On May 8th, as of that date, Mr. Moore had sent me a spreadsheet that we had assessed roughly $234,000 in technology related. Fixing Chromebooks, broken screens, replacing the entire unit, or they just didn't come back. As such, $77,000 is still outstanding. That's a lot of money. And with that, we have some of those balances can accumulate year over year. We actually have some students that have $700, $800, $900 bills. We're going to communicate with the parents again at the start of this school year, but that's one of those things we're waiting until their senior year. And then having to cut a check or for something that occurred in third grade, like a Chromebook. You don't necessarily want that, but you also don't want it stretching along that way, because it creates, well, $77,000 is a lot of money. So in some of the families and people we've reached out is they have no intention of paying. We actually had a case where a family left to go to a different school. They took the Chromebook and they had an outstanding over $1,000 fine. So what do you do with that? Those are some things we are going to need to talk about. As we're going to send some representatives to our school to see if we make up some ground on that, because we did talk about, like, do you tie it to extra duty or extra curriculums, where you have to have your fine settled. But there is a concern. There are going to be some $1,000 bill is going to be an economic issue for some families, and they don't want to, where their child isn't able to participate in sports because of it. There's that fine kind of balance on that. So just bringing it to the board's attention. Presumably we'll have some follow-up conversation, but just wanted to make the board aware that we're talking about it administratively, looking at it, communicating with parents, probably putting it in the next nest that goes home, is because just try to, we'd much rather try to get it with a carrot, informing than having to do it from a negative standpoint. But the reality is, at that dollar amount, we do have to at least look at it and bring it before the board. One of the things that I did want to share is, as 2019, we implemented our leave day stipend for our teachers, and every year I maintain kind of looking whether that's successful. And our teachers, it's become evident with our employees that it's something that we look forward to, but it's important to them. We had salaries this year, and the leave day stipend actually ranked as far as over health insurance, as far as a priority. But what are the results? Is it making a difference? I'm excited to be able to say yes again. This year, as you can kind of see here, 2016, 17, we had 2,700 absences. This is our certified staff. This would include FMLA and if someone being out for child or sickness, but I included that in all of these numbers. 2019-20, there's an asterisk there, that was COVID, so we went home in March, so that one is down a little bit, and the following year was the hybrid year. But as you can see, 21, 22, 22, 23 are normal school years. This year we had 1,743 absences. Now we've also went down some teachers, so to be fair, kind of comparing some of those, the average days missed, divided by the number of staff, had also come down and was the lowest that it is. So continuing to be successful and excited about the annual reduction of 613 days far exceeds the goal way back when we started out. I was just trying to, hey, if we can recoup 1 day per teacher, per employee, that's 400 days, and so we're exceeding that for sure, and that has huge instructional benefits for our kids. So excited for that. So finally, the superintendent report is just getting ready for back to school. Threw it up on the sign yesterday, out on the marquee. I'm sure people drove by on the way home from work. Parents are excited, kids were not. That was coming back on, but by next week we're turning the corner into August, and we have our welcome back assembly on the 13th, and first day of school on the 18th. We have our administrative retreat this weekend down at those are for our DESI conference, the annual administrator conference where throughout the state administrators go down. So that'll be this weekend, and that's kind of officially the kickoff to the 25-26 school year. So that's what I got on that.
Okay. Any questions, Steve? Thanks again. All right, we'll move to the next item, which does have action attached to it, recapitulation of funds. So do I have a motion to accept tonight's financial report and approve the fiscal year 25-26 recapitulation of funds as it's presented?
Motion.
All right. I want to update the board on this is as Ms. White has been closing out the FY25 school year. There's going to be potentially some subtle changes as a few things are still rolling in through June and some reconciliations, but it's very, very close as far as finishing up FY25. A few things of note, that's why there's an updating of a recapitulation of the balances and such. It's our first budget amendment of the FY25 26 year as we try to target in. So we actually end up with 102% of the revenue that we had anticipated. Ended up with a little bit more coming in. I'm having a brain freeze. Ms. White, can I?
Federal programs?
What's that?
Federal programs?
Federal programs came in.
There was a little bit in local funds also.
Some of the delinquent payments and such rolled in. On the expenditure side, we spent 98.10% of what was budgeted, and I'm going to come back to that later on in the report. I want to highlight that. Our local revenue came in a little bit higher than expected. Federal revenue ran at about 127%, which was the federal programs. State revenue ran right on, that's of course tied to ADA. Looking here, overall, when you look at the general fund of where we had put things, the general fund, the revenue finished almost $650,000 less than we had projected, as well as the teacher funds there, and kind of detail out what had occurred. Our capital projects, we had a transfer there, so that ended up being higher than initially projected. Debt service, we got an interest payment coming on that, Ms. White?
Interest rebates on the QSCB and QCAB bonds.
So the IRS had cut us back a check on that. So all total funds, we had about $1.1 million additionally there. So we had actually, in that time, had updated Mr. Carson there on the newspaper. These numbers reflect what Ms. White had shared with you, because we thought it might come out actually today, so we wanted to go on that. Year-over-year comparisons. I believe this is important for the board to kind of see where we've come, to project where we're going in the future, and this is what Ms. White on that is local revenue is down. So as we talk about some of the things later on related to property taxes, we're down about $340,000. Some of that is due in part to we've been reducing our tax rate, and so you're not going to be bringing in as much revenue. So total revenue is a little down over fiscal year 24. One of the things that I do think it's important, I want to point this out, is our state revenue and our local county revenue are relatively close. So as a district, we need to continually pay attention to what's going on in Jefferson City as far as the state budget, because that's going to have big impacts one way or the other in the Hillsboro district. And on our other revenue, or excuse me, our other right here, this $289,000 up there. Next year when we look at that, that's going to show a decrease because we're not selling the Richmond property. So including that in the story here kind of explains it from a long-term perspective, and then broke it down by expenditure by fund, where we spent our money and how we ended up as far as a change year over year. The big one here being the debt service, $13 million. That's going to go down obviously significantly next year. When you look at the year over year, when FY 26 is there and FY 25 is in that middle column, it'll look like significant changes. And put the next explanation in there, and then also included what I just said. FY 26 and subsequent years will have experienced significant lower debt service. Rounding out, this is the change year over year in elementary instruction. The last column there is the 1 year change. As you kind of go through there, maintenance is up $275,000 year over year. Executive administration down $263. Principal and interest, because we paid off a lot of that debt service and capital. So that's all the principal and interest and knocking out our debt, $8.7 million. A little reference there, highlighting here as we had talked about before. Over the last 2 years since FY 23, executive administration decreased over 31%, $534,000. Net position budget utilization. This I want to commend Ms. White for working with Dr. Burkeen. One of our strategic plan goals is that, we have the one with reserves. We want to be 18 to 22%. But one of our strategic plan goals is we want to be within 5% of what we budget ends up being our actual expenses. Is in FY 23, that number was 81.38. FY 24 was 83.64. This year, we spent 98% of what we budgeted. And that sounds like, what did you spend? That sounds like you spent more money. What that means is we're more accurate. I mean, the 57,000 looks, or 57 million, so it looks like a bigger. The key is, did we accurately predict what we were gonna spend? Why that is important, salaries, as we're planning for the next year and all that. So, thank you to Jen and Dr. Burkeen and everyone in the office who's works to make sure that that occurs. I was pretty excited to see that as we roll into this next year. And thus, part of that accuracy is why we have a budget amendment of a budget that we just passed to continue to refine that to make sure that it's accurate. So with that additional money and not spending as much as we anticipated, we are ending the year with the reserves of 44.89%, which is very healthy. Our debt service fund decreased significantly by over $11 million, while our capital fund, because we're pushing money in there, planning for the turn lane and other improvements such as high school. What's that?
High school HVAC.
High school HVAC is putting that money in there to build up and then potentially look at things with the early childhood center, the grants and the playground, and all those different things as we go and plan for the future. With that is the FY26 balances are equal to the ending balances, and where we project them, I have a narrative there, but I also included, I'm gonna run through these on the very back, because this is for the public. It's on the very back of the sheet that actually shows. On page 27 of the budget, this one will be what's replacing that. So we're finishing with 17 million. In the general fund, I'm gonna pull that up a little bit. Our debt service will be down to 1.7, or is down. Capital at 5.2 million, so $24 million in reserves. Our revenues projected, our total balances, our transfers, so putting $1 million into capital through the year. We'll actually have a balanced budget as far as general and teacher, and pay off the rest of, not the rest, but another vast majority of our debt service, and then end the year with 22 million. So projected to end this upcoming school year to be at 42.38. Our previous budget, I believe, had it at 39%. So 3% higher than what we originally anticipated. So that's an in-depth look on that again. Thank you to Ms. White and everyone in the office.
Thank you. All right, any questions? Financial report. All those in favor of approval this evening? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, do we have any items of public comment? Questions? Public comments? Okay, on to some new business. First of which is the 25-26 school calendar revision. Do I have a motion to approve this revised calendar as presented?
Motion. Second.
Questions on that? Share changes?
The law changed where our inclement weather days will count towards that 169 days that we had previously. So we're looking at the calendar, we were able to remove one day and the school year on Thursday instead of Friday, which will be helpful as we plan for summer school after.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of approval? None opposed? Motion carries. All right, next is the acceptance and allocations of the FY26 DESI enhancement grant. Do I have a motion to approve the use of $191,398.50 in enhancement grant funds as outlined in the budget?
Second.
Any questions on this? Sure.
Just an update, we have engineering is pretty well finished. We should be going out to bid really soon in the next couple of weeks. I was hoping to have that approved by the August board meeting, but if not, it might be an early September special board meeting, but we'll be really close. The plan is to finish one classroom hopefully by Christmas break and then transition to the next classroom so we're not interrupting school as much as we've kind of worked that out with Mr. Groner and the high school staff on relocating and stuff throughout the school year, but should be seeing bids pretty soon.
Any other questions? Okay, all right, hearing none. All those in favor of approval? None opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to the approval of the Ability Network for behavioral services for the 25-26 school year. Do I have a motion to approve the Ability Network agreement for behavioral services for 25-26?
Motion.
Any questions on this agreement? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approval? None opposed? Motion carries. All right, next is the approval of agreement with Rural Health for private duty nursing. Do I have a motion to approve this agreement with Rural Health for private duty nursing for the 25-26 school year?
Motion.
Any questions on this agreement? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval? None opposed? Motion carries. And next is the approval of the MOU with Jefferson Franklin Community Action, Head Start. Do I have a motion to approve the MOU with the Head Start, the Jefferson Franklin Community Action for the 25-26 school year?
Motion. Second.
Any questions on this MOU? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval this evening? None opposed? Motion carries. All right, we also have the agreement with Elite ABA Services. Do I have a motion to approve the Elite ABA Services agreement?
Motion. Second.
Questions here? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approval? None opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have approval of the supplemental health care agreement for occupational and physical therapy. Do I have a motion to approve this agreement for occupational and physical therapy services for the 25-26?
Motion.
Any questions here?
I don't have to do the bills, do I?
No, unless you want to.
Then I want to approve that, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor of approval? All right, motion carries. All right, we also have the approval of the Principal Growth Coach and Leadership Strategist. It's a 550-hour position. Do I have a motion to approve the Principal Growth Coach and Leadership Strategist position as it has been budgeted and outlined?
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments, concerns with this position? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval? Again, no one is opposed, motion carries. All right, we do have renewal of our relationship with Sodexo. So I have a motion to approve the renewal of the agreement with Sodexo Food Services to continue as our food service provider for the 25-26 school year.
Motion. Second.
All right, any questions on this agreement?
We're required to go out to bid every 5 years with the food service. This would be year 3. The contract is just annual, but the prices are bid out for a 5-year price. So this is just the annual agreement that we will continue with.
Okay. All right, any questions? Okay. All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approval? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, we also have to approve this coming year's lunch prices. Do I have a motion to approve the 10-cent increase to both paid breakfast and lunch prices for the 25-26 school year?
Motion.
Questions on this? This is the same adjustment that we made in previous years that also reflects the maximum increase allowed. Questions? All right, all those in favor of approval? None opposed? Motion carries. All right, we do have some minutes as well this evening. Approval of the minutes from the June 12th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes?
Motion. Second.
Any questions, comments, clarifications on this set of minutes? Okay. All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approval? And none opposed? Motion carries. All right, we also have a bill for payment to Jefferson College. Do I have a motion to approve this bill for payment to the amount of $1,400?
Motion.
Everybody wants to pay the bills to Jefferson. Any questions on this particular bill? All those in favor? And any opposed? And then I will have one abstention there, so motion carries. All right, we also have the approval of the Jefferson College Area Technical School, the Perkins allotment for that consortium agreement. Do we have a motion to approve the Jefferson College ATS Secondary Perkins agreement that is just presented?
Motion.
Any questions here? This is part of an annual agreement between our institutions. Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval? Any opposed? And I also have one abstention. Motion carries. All right, so we are at a point now where we do have some board policy items that are at their second read, ready for approval. We have a motion to approve policy revisions 2025 A and B as presented. Motion.
Motion.
Any questions regarding the set of policy revisions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval? None opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We do have some informational items. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Isaacson with regards to Senate Bill 3.
Yes, wanted to bring before the board and just update everyone as to kind of where we are at on the Senate Bill 3. Is probably more widely known as the bill that is the stadium bill for keeping the Chiefs here. In the board packet, there's a significant amount of information. I went through and just as a means to educate the community, because I think a lot of people really don't have a good attention or have a full understanding of what this bill is it was a stadium bill, but in order to pass that, politics got involved. And so they also added, the legislature did about $100 million for the St. Louis area in response to the tornado. The other portion of this bill is that of which dealing with property taxes and assessed valuations as to each senator got to choose what they wanted to put on a ballot, each county being required to put on a ballot to the citizens to establish what the permanent assessed valuation was as long as you live in your home. Our Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman set that at 0 for Jefferson County. Likewise, Franklin County is 0, etc. Next, I actually put a map. It's in your board packet. I'll actually share my screen to kind of guide some of the conversation. Is within here, as you'll see, I put a significant amount of information that I recommend that the community delve into, just become educated. It involves us here at Hillsboro and within the county. But our district is in the 0%. St. Louis County is not impacted. They chose to not be a part of it. And so other counties. So what has been created is each county has a different thing going on. So there's concerns that it's not even constitutional, that you can't just pick and choose what each area is going to do arbitrarily, because it creates kind of an unfair scenario when a blanket application could occur, of which we already have with Hancock. So as such, our school attorney, as well as many school districts, fire districts, ambulance districts, I sat on a call with the library districts, any political subdivision, we rely on property taxes. Is the local, our local control is local supporting of that. And so I foresee a collective challenging of that constitution, somebody has to file for that. And the Hillsboro board, we may need to look at that in the future, but we're also, I have a meeting this week with some other leaders in the fire, ambulance, all the different political subdivisions to kind of see where we're at, where they're at with that. It's frustrating for me that we do have to, anytime you file a suit like this, you're using tax dollars to preserve tax dollars, of which it's locally we've been told, like, hey, we, even within the bill, and I included in there, they put a severability clause in there. So when it was passed, and there's been a lot of talk about this, by the legislators themselves, they don't even know that it's constitutional, but it got the stadium bill passed. And so when you put an out in there, there's our talk, like, it's literally where they can remove parts of the bill, but the other parts stay in. Unfortunately, everyone gets caught up in the politics that occurred to the west of us. So I would encourage the community to look in there, because there's been a lot of talk about assessed valuation. And it's something I want to talk about publicly, because I'm proud of this school district. I'm proud of this board because of the work that they've done. And I put it in there, the Jefferson County Property Viewer, and this will be on camera. I encourage if you live in Jefferson County, you can access the website we put on there, and you can look at your own home. You can look at what your assessed valuation is, and up in the left-hand corner up there, you can go by year. You can see what your home assessed for. If you saw that, you'd be like, oh my, that's less. Nobody wants to pay taxes, but you can see there. And I can tell you, and I do it all the time and randomly look, because is across the school district, many of the homeowners, your taxes are lower now in 2024 than they were in 2021. And nominally, I mean, a lot of them within $20, $4 of 2018. And I would encourage you to do that. Is, as I went through our financial report, we've been reducing our tax rate. We have mechanisms in place with our Hancock Amendment, rolling things back, and by being good stewards, that this board has really worked hard and is mindful of taxes on our seniors. You know, as a former board member, Mr. Schuster would always bring that up. And this board hasn't forgotten that. And I haven't forgotten that as in the work that I do of that's important. But this makes it even more challenging. And it then puts it on a board, and it's more of a heads up, I may be asking a board that who's done everything they can to be good stewards of our district's money, to is literally reduce taxes in a time when everything else is going up. And I would encourage any homeowner in the Hillsboro district to look at that. And now it may have went up, but you can click in to see what the Hillsboro School District number is. And I can almost say, I guarantee it's more. And so, but to be put in a position to then defend that, and then potentially, because it will require, quite frankly, the board to ask for even above and beyond, like if we wanted to do construction, there's some things to improve our district for our kids, academically and athletically, where we may go and we need to ask for a levy increase. But it changes that number because you have to make up for the gap, because at the end of the day, the cost is the cost. Everyone knows things are getting more expensive. So this Senate bill is kind of a mess right now, so I don't want us to run out ahead of everyone else, but it's also collectively may come back and say, this is what the other, what's going on in the state of Missouri. So it's a kind of I threw a lot out there, and would encourage, if you're watching on this tape, to watch it again, go through some of the documents. And on here, there's news articles about it, just so you can educate it, as I tried to kind of take a cross-section of newspapers, because I don't want to get into partisan and like that. Missouri Independent is a nonpartisan, included the bill in there, clarifying and even just a lot of information that I would highly encourage people to look at the long-term impacts of this, not just on Hillsboro, but across our state, because I think the decision was made quickly to get a state in bill. And I think they realized that as well, but now we have to work through that.
So if I understand the legislation right, the senator that represents Jefferson County elected to put us at 0%. That still requires a vote of the citizens of Jefferson County to put that in place.
Correct.
Right, so that would still need to happen, kind of solidify this and put this in play on a permanent basis.
Correct.
But there may be challenges to this in terms of it being unconstitutional.
Prior to that.
Prior to that, right.
It has to be on in April.
Yeah, are you aware of any other political subdivisions? You mentioned like meeting with some that are planning to talk about this with their boards and start moving in that.
There's multiple districts statewide, even locally, that was on their board agendas as recently as this week, gathering information, so we're not alone in that. Maybe in our radius.
I mean, outside of the reduction in the tax revenue, just one of the biggest concerns that I have about this legislation is that it strips away local control from boards that are elected by the communities which they're serving. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. It's an interesting kind of turn of events, not dissimilar to Senate Bill 190 in my opinion. Questions? Comments? Those are my 2 cents. Thoughts? Okay. You wanna-
No, I'm going to say, to me, part of this is, again, that the legislature passes a bill without looking at the practicality of it and how it's going to play out, how it's going to affect everybody. It's kind of like how it affects them in the political world instead of us peons down here. Kind of ticks me off. This whole thing.
Other thoughts this evening? All right, we're going to turn our attention to some additional discussion on different Senate Bill 68. Switch gears.
Senate Bill 68 is a really big bill with lots of safety items in there, and tried to condense it. It's in the board packet here, kind of aligning what do we need to do with what we already have been doing. And so most of Senate Bill 68 we've already got covered. We've, as a district, been proactively ahead of that. Or Dr. LaRue, we have the safety coordinator with Mr. Ramsey, and also Ms. Woodham has worked on the CPR and expanding that, and moving through to that. Dr. LaRue, do you have anything that you want to add to some of these things?
No, I feel like most of it's, we've done a lot to be in place and prior to this being rolled out, but just have an emergency operation plan, setting up on it. Jim's done a really good job with it. Make sure we're evaluating our spaces and security entrances and security among campus. We already offer CPR, but we do have to expand that, so we're looking at that service with Ms. Woodham. So we've had these even before this went into a vote and passed. Mr. Ramsey and I have had a lot of conversations, so we're in really good shape with the district with a lot of the safety things.
The big, couple of big changes of when students are suspended, we can now count their ADA. And now it's school suspension. That never used to be the case. So just kind of going through that there's a lot of stuff there. But the big one that is cell phone use is no longer permitted during the instruction. So the next agenda item is MSBA has put out the draft student use of personal communication devices. This is actually, I don't know when they put it in there, but I would imagine it's in the last week, because I had actually went in last Monday, and it was in JCR. So I was looking for that thing, came out, like, wait a minute, it's not in there anymore. And that's how they hadn't even sent this email out, an update, it was just in our assembly board packet. So I have that before the board for approval and review tonight, as well as we visited with our administrators, and I actually included that mid-afternoon. It's in blue in your board packet. Student handbook is visiting about the consequences for that. So any questions on that? This isn't an agenda item here. This is the discussion kind of piece to that. And the handbooks aren't necessarily approved, the policies approved. I just wanted to get input from the board and thoughts collectively.
Any questions? Thoughts about the approach? Other elements related to this?
Just, yeah, here comes my teacher. I mean, I was kind of identified as a teacher that took away a lot of cell phones, because this was obviously, and so as a teacher who follows, the guidelines, etc., it will be a major issue for administrators as well as teachers initially, but I'm a strong believer that if you enforce it from day one, by September, the end of September, it will be, the kids will know what the expectations are, and they'll follow. However, there's always the concern of those staff members that don't necessarily follow the rules and still allow, use of the devices in their classroom for whatever reason. And, that's always a glitch.
Well, when we visit with the principals, and we talked about this at the point, is my expectation, I was public as we were talking about it, because I'm going to use the high school, and that's going to be
That's going to be
the
the
toughest,
hardest group.
is, in talking with Mr. Brunner, is I was, 4 principals are not, he's like, how are we going to, and 4 principals aren't, is how this gets addressed is Mr. Brunner's job is not to chase students down. His job is to make sure the adults, the teachers, that's kind of, I go, Mr. Groner, your focus is the teachers on the implementation piece of it. And hopefully the teachers collectively, because they have, to your point, it's hard when one person is not enforcing, or, and we talk about, this isn't a dress code thing. This isn't where somebody like a comfort, it's a cell phone. Like you have, if you're walking down the hall, and I told Mr. Rowe, I go, if you literally, you see a kid coming down, there's teachers in the hall, and all of a sudden they got their phone out, is you have to go address those teachers, like, and it may even be, we need to document those type of scenarios. Is in here, because we have, the first one is where the teachers warn, hey, put it away. Because there is going to be, we talked about that, the administrators did. Our goal isn't to end up with out-of-school suspensions, because the kid has their phone out, gets detention, they don't serve the detention. And you have this progressive discipline of working with them, hey, you need to put that away. But it's also going to require the teachers putting it into the system and kind of building that up. It's we are making a differentiation, and the administrators are there, so if I misspeak, please interrupt, because I want to say anything, is if I ask for Miss Hildebrand's phone, and she ain't, I don't even give you my phone, and you get into the that's a whole different, we're gonna hammer that. Insubordination and respect related to that, that's a different type item. Or if a student has a phone and does something inappropriate, does a Snapchat in there, a bullying type thing, it's different. Well, I just had my phone. No. The having your phone is, you shouldn't have your phone out warning, it's your third offense, mom got to pick it up. But if you're recording or you record a file, that's going to be a serious consequence. Because not only did you have it there, you did something that you shouldn't be doing that's above and beyond. And so is working through, because it's going to be a huge change. And also, our teachers shouldn't have that. They're, other than for academic reasons, we kind of talked about that, like PE out on the track when they take attendance. But I think our kids, they also understand if Mr. Gordon's taking attendance at the beginning of the hour is a lot different than on your phone 30 minutes in. Like, that can't happen either. And I'm going to talk with the teachers on the welcome back. I'm sure I'll get some pushback, but I feel strongly on that, because professionally is, I wouldn't want my doctor while he's doing a knee surgery checking his phone.
How's this procedure?
You know, how's this procedure going? Or taking the phone call is, or if you're in court with your attorney, or all these different jobs. There's many jobs out there that you don't have access to your phone. And I think we should, as professionals, as educators, we should adhere to that when students are around, unless you're using it for an emergency reason, if we have to go, of which there's things in there where we need to communicate for school business, that we shouldn't have it out around our kids. We need to model what our expectations are.
So my question is the expectation that the devices be in the locker or just put away in their backpack or in their pocket? I'm curious just as a parent to how to, coach my kids and inform them it needs to be put in your locker when you get to school before the bell rings. You can get it out at the end of the day. Or you need to keep it turned off in your pocket and just don't access it. What is the expectation?
The expectation is, they all have lockers, is put in your locker, but to that end, I'm not gonna expect the principals to,
Right.
you have it on you. As a parent, I'd say put it in your locker, because the temptation is going to occur. So that's what ours, it should be in the locker. If it's on their person, we're not, I don't envision our principals like, is that a square phone in your, like, it's in your pocket. That's not what we're trying to do is, but if they're walking down the hall and they have, that's where it will be addressed. And it's a state law, and so.
No, I agree with you. I mean, if it's in my son's pocket, he's tempted to pull it out.
And to me, even if it's in their locker, if you're, literally throughout the school day, in between classes, the kids are still going to, be accessing and all of that. You go back to my era, and I told my son, I said, you leave it in your truck. Because once you take it in the building, there's always concerns.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to
No,
keep
I
it out of the
agree.
building.
I agree.
So I think the lockers probably,
But
that's what I'll be directing my own kids, is that you
even
go
in
in
the
the
locker,
locker.
they will access it during passing time.
Use the bathroom.
That's right.
They stop for a walk around.
What about smartwatches and things like that? Doesn't that fall under this new law
So
as
it's
well?
over years.
Are those going to be asked to be removed, or just, like, I know for me, it's very distracting to look at my wrist. I purposely don't wear it on certain occasions because it is a distraction. So that's gonna be a little bit harder, I think, to address if you see somebody looking at their smartwatch multiple
Yes.
times throughout the day or in class.
I think that was included in here is, but to your point, I think it's
Right.
gonna be difficult, is in kind of that, if they're utilizing their smartwatch.
Right.
And by utilizing is they're texting, they're
Right.
doing, that is, to not wear a watch. I
Right.
don't think we're gonna maintain that. And even on the personal devices, some kids have a MacBook that, you know, educationally, those are things, there is within the law, is similar with the keyboard and a learning device that is likely going to fall under that educational need. It's very different than.
Well, the law itself indicates the definition of the personal communication device to be a portable device that initiate, receive, store, et cetera, data electronically. The policy widens that to include, may include the cell phone, smartwatch, personal laptops, tablets, video games, portable media players. So my question is a procedural element if we, because in the exceptions in the policy, when authorized to use a device for educational purposes, we plan to incorporate a procedure to say that the student that prefers that MacBook to the district issued Chromebook, we're going to have a way to recognize that so that they're not visited by a teacher every single hour, that they need to put that in their locker.
We have a policy that they're allowed to bring those devices and not use the district issued Chromebook.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so
And
that's,
if it becomes an issue, maybe we get a form which is approved, where approved list of devices to where it's almost like a license to, you can access our, you have a MacBook and it's a bit detailed. And if you get a new one for Christmas or whatever, you're updating that academic item.
so in the policy, that's what the number 2 is, when authorized to use such a device for an educational purpose. Because when I read that, I was thinking, what does that mean? Because we give them Chromebooks, so why would they need anything else?
And is
I
that-
didn't realize that they were allowed to use other things.
Is that a district decision, that at a policy level, it sounds like it's a district decision, but is it then also a building level decision or a teacher-to-teacher decision? Because I know some of the other grades use like the Kahoot platform, and you could launch that on your device. If we have that available for individual classroom use, then that could be considered an educational use, and just ensure where the procedural element allows for the incorporation.
Well, if you've got, maybe I'm getting too far in the weeds for this thought, but if you've got someone on their personal device and they're using it inappropriately, by the letter of this policy, it would be confiscated. We're going to confiscate their device they're using for educational purposes too, so there probably needs to be something there to iron, or I think there needs to be something to iron that out or move that way too.
Well, I think if they're doing,
I guess you could confiscate it for the day and issue a Chromebook.
yeah,
you know.
is,
Yeah.
that where that's,
So if they are bringing their own MacBook or whatever, they don't take a school issued Chromebook, correct? Or no?
Some of them do, but they're, even if they have their own device, they also have the school Chromebook.
Some, and some just use their own device
Yes.
as well.
Mm.
But we still have that option from back when we moved to one-to-one,
Yes.
where you can use the district or personal, bring your own device.
is that on their personal device, does LimeWise still in effect for those?
As long as they're connected to our network, yes. If they have some kind of mobile, cell tower set up, then no, it would not.
Well, I'm just not electronic like everybody else. Why would a student need/want a Mac versus the Chromebook?
It's bigger. The Chromebook's kind of,
If that's what they've got at home, if that's what they've got at home, it's
Ease of
easier to
use.
use the same thing at
Same
school.
thing.
Yeah, being familiar with the ease of use.
Yeah.
I mean, I have preferences on my devices. But there's also certain circumstances I don't get to select either. You use what you're given. Mhm.
So giving students the choice, does that present more problems?
I think it muddies it a little bit.
I think if they're using it for the appropriate use.
Right.
For example, if they can communicate on their Chromebooks in ways that they shouldn't be communicated on
Sure.
on a school issue Chromebook,
Right.
in the same fashion as they could if they brought their own devices.
Are we able to monitor though?
That's
Is that
what I
what
was-
you were asking the line
Yeah.
on?
yes, so they,
Because I know on our school issue Chromebooks, things are monitored.
so when they're on our network, they can't.
But when they're on their Chromebooks at home, it's still being monitored, correct?
Yes.
But not their personal device. So a student's at home on their Chromebook and they're Google searching, but if they're doing their homework on their personal device and Google searching, we don't know. That to me is what muddies the water.
Well, so as a teacher in the classroom, okay, I'm old, I realize that. Am I going to know the difference? You guys are a lot younger than I am. Will I know the difference as a teacher? Like it's okay for them to have their Mac versus the Chromebook and what's appropriate? Okay, just
No.
curious. Because I wouldn't know the difference.
Well, the Chromebook's gonna be like, this is more of a smaller size versus,
Oh, yeah.
But I know
Physically, yes.
what is approved through the district and what's not, the personal device.
Do you mean the type of personal device? Like
No,
whether
just
it's-
that this student, it's okay for them to have the Mac versus,
Any student can bring their own device.
but don't they have to have it registered with a form to fill out or something? Oh, nothing, so they can just, oh, so there's really no control, unless they're on the network.
Correct.
Which unless they had a
Hotspot.
hotspot or a cellular enabled laptop or tablet, they would have to connect to the district network, which at that point then it is monitored.
Yeah.
now, this is also just during the instructional day. So
Sure.
at 2:30, like, they're gonna be able to
Right.
access the thing with our phone, get on their phones anyhow. And two, when we're talking about at home, even if we require them to use the Chromebook when they're here, we wouldn't require them to
Right.
have to do their homework on a Chromebook at home.
Are we talking about a pretty small population of students that are bringing their own devices? Yeah, this isn't happening.
And
Half
a
of
lot,
every
a lot of
section
them
is-
are college kids
I mean, the biggest component of the list of technology is the cell phone.
Sure.
Yes.
And that's why I had the number 2 identified as, when would they need to use their cell phone as an educational device? Because I was zeroing on the cell phone and not on Chromebook. So,
To that, I don't think any student, I'll go on record and say, I don't, not at school, when we're providing a Chromebook.
I wouldn't think so.
Maybe at home, somebody would be like, because they didn't take it home and My oldest would be typing a research paper on his phone, like kids do
But
that.
like me checking my Word documents on
Like
this
calculators and
versus.
stuff, they don't use their phone in math for a
But
calculator.
to that end, I would say this, our math teachers is, we can go back and say you need to go get the TI-80 or whatever and use, because that's the slippery slope, is, well, we need it for math. No, we just need to add that to our supply list. And they don't need to listen, you know, they listen to music. Again, this is slippery slope, is this is not an educational device that replaces what we currently provide. If you want to bring in a learning devices such as
Okay.
that. But yeah, we need to get calculators, and even if we didn't we'll pay for the classroom supplies to get those.
So can that be actually identified in the policy? That statement that you just kind of made, that instead of leaving it, instead of a device, put a disclaimer there, does not include cell phones or something? Because until this discussion, I realize, you know, I'm beyond the electronic age, but I read that to include that if I have a teacher that lets me use my cell phone, then I can use it because I'm using it for an educational reason.
So essentially, for the purpose of this policy, cell phones and video game devices, portable media players, and smart watches are not deemed educational devices or something?
Well, I think the way that the sentence is presented in the definition of the personal communication device, it says may include. And so that's the part that then, I would take that to mean the device that hasn't been invented today falls into this category.
Right.
But there could be, what we include or may not include. I think that's the point I was making with the question about number 2 is how do we authorize devices that may include this list? So if there are some like personal tablet or a laptop that we would want to recognize and allow for the students to use under current policy, how are we ensuring that they're adhering to both halves of this policy situation? Making sure that we're recognizing
Well, I
the
think
students that
with
are bringing that, but also adhering to it being a qualified educational use case.
You know, with defining the personal communication device up there, I think if you try to repeat it in number 2, now if something new comes up, then it's like, well, that's not in the policy.
Yeah.
You know, so you almost have to leave it broad. And then that's a conversation that you have with your staff in deciding, you know, if they say, well, I have the kids use their cell phones for this, let's find that out before the school year starts. And that's addressed before the kids get back into the school building. You know, the teachers that are in the classroom knowing what's expected is how this is going to work, what the expectations are. And with some conversation prior to the start of the school year, defining what do they see as an educational purpose. And then being able to say, no, calculator won't count. How many, you know, you can't use it as a calculator. How many calculators do you need for your classroom? And get those conversations out of the way instead of waiting until week 1 and the kid goes into English and says, well, I get to use it in math for a calculator. Why can't I use it in here for a dictionary? No. So,
That's an excellent point, because I hear stories of, I mean, right now, of staff not enforcing the current, rules that are in place. So in essence, if you allow in that situation, I could almost see one of those staff members that doesn't want, that didn't enforce it in the past, using that as a crutch. Well, I don't want to enforce it, so I'm just going to say it's for an educational reason.
yeah.
And allow them to have it while they're in that classroom.
Right.
I think we should use that option.
Kids, we have a meeting on the 11th. Is as we're discussing that is that I want to be able to visit with the administrators at Hillsboro, because two kind of ideas came to my head. I want to verbalize them because I also don't want to impose something that's like an albatross. Is one, if the number of students bringing devices like this is minimal, is if we had basically a gatekeeper of you're registered to do that. Similarly, to Ms. Ganga's point, is if Mr. Isaacson has an educational reason of which he wants the administrators to know that they're using phone. It's also a similar, I use this device, kids in my class are going to be using it for this. They have to go down to their administrator and explain why they're, to eliminate the, okay, today nobody's paying attention, blow out your thing, you can listen to headphones. Because similarly, if the administrator's walking by, then it's black and white. If I'm a building administrator, I know that Mr. Lindor's class, he don't have one of those things, or I use it in this one lab, they gotta take a picture. Okay, is there's some accountability for me as a teacher and assisting, is it a pain potentially? Hey, you gotta fill out that form and get approval, similar like what I do with all the college classes, is that gives us, in my mind, some protection on there. It's an extra step, but allows, needs more control.
But I think it leans into the language of the policy, the way it's presented with a procedural element that qualifies both the hardware use that comes from the outside and then the desire to have the software piece as a qualified educational tool.
So it'll be tabled and then bring that. Or do you think we need to table, or is that just
I think
administrative?
talk to your admin and see.
If there are other
Yeah.
edits to the policy
Because
language.
have the administrators actually looked the policy the way it's written here and applied it to, I mean, I hadn't seen it until today, and I kind of looked for it earlier. Billy, it's all coming. Bill and Billy, it's coming your way. Leslie, a little bit, but.
All right, we do have an action item. Next item on the list is relative to the approval of this language as it's presented. So we need to take some action on that regardless of what goes from here. We'd like to move to.
And then I move that we table that item.
Okay.
So you have time to talk to your administrator
So
too.
a motion to table that until the next meeting.
I
Is
move
your-
to table it.
And so we're clear with bringing back
How
the
it's-
process for the communication devices, and then teacher process for that's
Educational.
education.
And anything else the administrators feel need to be here
Yeah, if there's something.
to
that-
make their job easier, because this is not going to be easy the first 2 months for sure.
And it will probably ride waves throughout the academic year.
That's
moving
right.
Back from first to second
From
semester transition.
holidays. But it's all about consistency.
So the motion on the floor at the moment is to table until the next meeting, the approval of this policy. Any motion second, any other discussions at this point in time? Sure. Okay. All right, hearing none at this point, all those in favor of tabling this until the next board meeting? Motion approved. Okay, I'll move on to the last bit of info in open session tonight with upcoming dates on the Board of Education calendar. We've got a workshop coming up on
So that was, we had personnel, we usually do late hiring, the board workshop, a lot of times talk about goals and stuff with you, but that will now be, will include an open session piece for this policy address those. Just say that.
Any questions on the upcoming calendar?
But I didn't put all those dates in.
We do have some items of, to go back into executive session here, so it is 8:18. I'll ask for a motion here in just a moment. In accordance with RSMO 610.021, for the purpose of items related to individually identifiable personnel records and hiring, firing, discipline, and promotion controls. All those in favor of recessing into executive session? None opposed? We'll take a quick break. We are now in executive session. Thanks. Appreciate everybody being here.